for example, I gave the example of someone who's attached to fancy bikes or cars like that. Let them do it. He buys it, he'll drive it to and from the temple, to and from his service, to and from with his family. It's fine. He shouldn't be in complete illusion that, no, this is Yukta Vairagya, I only got it for devotional service. No, you got it because you wanted it. But you're using it in the Lord's service. You go to the mountain because you want to, right? But you're chanting your rounds. You're eating the pizza because you want to. The Lord has no desire for pizza. You're making pizza because you wanted pizza. Be honest with yourself. But we offer it first to the Lord. Understand? So whatever desire we have, we should always go to the Lord, and we shouldn't feel ashamed or in any way kind of hesitating. We ask the Lord. And if He sees it fit, He will facilitate it. If not, He won't. And that surrender to the Lord is the most important thing, because even in our devotional service, there's so many situations that might arise where we endeavor so hard for something, but it didn't turn out the way we wanted. Right? And if we are not surrendered, that can be a cause of our downfall. That can be the cause of, forget, I'm not going to do devotional service anymore. Right? Word for word. Tasmin, him, Brahmani, the Supreme Brahman, Advitiye, without a second, Kevale, being one, Paramahatmani, the Supersoul, Brahmarudrao, both Brahma and Shiva, Cha, and Bhutani, the living entities, Bedena, with separation, Agyaha, one who is not properly conversant, Anupasati, thinks. Translation. The Lord continued, one who is not in proper knowledge thinks that demigods like Brahma and Shiva are independent, or he even thinks that the living entities are independent. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The living entities, including Brahma, are not independently separated, but are counted within the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, being the Supersoul, and every living entity, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, is directing everyone in the activities of the material modes of nature. No one can act independently of the sanction of the Lord, and therefore, indirectly, no one is different from the Supreme Person. Certainly not Brahma or Rudra, who are incarnations of the material nature's modes of passion and ignorance. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudhirayet. Mukam karoti vachalam pangulam gayate girim yakripatamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyam Ishwaram Namam Vishnupadaya Krishnapastaya Bhutale Srimate Niruna Swami Namne Namo Prabhupada Prijasaya Jagannatha Yatra Nandamurtaya Bhaktusukena Krishna Kirtana Narasimhena Rakshataya Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnapastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyati Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Yevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai. So today we'll be speaking on this verse 52 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where the Lord, in this past time, Daksha was already corrected for his mistake. He was given a new body in which he can properly understand the greatness of the Lord and his devotees. Then once the Supreme Lord Vishnu arrives within the sacrificial arena, then all the demigods, the sages, the Gandharvas, the Vidyadharas, one after another are offering him prayers. And then Daksha himself offered prayers to the Lord, glorifying him and asking him for his blessings. Many beautiful prayers he spoke. And then once the Lord heard all of this, then the Lord is speaking now. So this is the third verse in which the Lord is answering everyone's prayers and also talking to Daksha. So in in this verse, he's very clearly defining the position of the Supreme Lord. And there's hundreds of verses in the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and so many other Upanishads in different places where the Lord is establishing his divinity above the demigods, right? He is not saying that they're equal to me, independent to me. No, he's very clearly establishing the position of himself, right? And Prabhupada, so many different purports, it's just verse after verse after verse from so many different selected Puranas, different smritis, different shrutis. He's describing this exact point. So just a few that comes from Bhagavad Gita and one Upanishad I would like to mention. So the first one Prabhupada describes in a purport to Bhagavad Gita where the same point is brought up. He says, this is from Bhagavad Gita, so you have Na me vidhu suraghana prabhavam ma na maharshraya aham adir devanam maharshinam cha sarvasha. So it says, neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences. For in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. So here Prabhupada in this purport, he talks about how if the Lord is the origin of all these demigods, how can they know him in full? How can they know him to be everything he is? They can only know as much as he allows them to know. As much energy as he gives to them, to that extent they will know. And so this in Krishna is speaking in this verse about Gita, he's telling Arjuna that ultimately all work, all religious activities, everything is unto me, and therefore there's no need to separately worship the demigods. In Krishna consciousness we know that sometimes we do worship the demigods, but not as the supreme, as a devotee. And as another devotee, we're asking them as a devotee to please help us in our devotional service, because they are surrendered souls to some extent. And so whatever realization they have, whatever energy they have, they can help us in our devotional service. Right? In deity worship, it's very common to worship Ganesh, because Ganesh is the remover of obstacles. So we want him to remove the obstacles in our devotional service. Obstacles such as our thoughts, our bad thoughts, our anarthas, different things. He will remove them for us to be able to do our devotional service. We do not ask him for removing obstacles for us to get a new house, a new car, a fancy, business. No, we want him simply to remove the obstacles in our devotional service. Right? In another verse, the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhabho mata sarva pravartate iti matva bhajante man buddha bhava samanvita. Right? I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So the Lord here is very clearly saying, I'm the source of everything. And those who know that, the wise who know that, he says, Buddha Bhava Samamvita, the people who have intelligence, they know this, and so they worship me with all their hearts. They don't separately go to different demigods. Oh, I want some material opulence, I'll go to this. When I want knowledge, then I'll go to Saraswati. When I want, so many different things that is described in the Vedas, then you go to particular demigods for every individual desire you have. Rather, they simply worship the Lord, knowing that he is the origin of everything, and so anything that they need will come from him. Ultimately, anyway. And so in this way, they go directly to the source, not trying to go to the branches, right? The analogy is always given that we water the branches, desiring the fruit. No, you water the root of the plant, then the fruit will come naturally. So the root of all plants, of all the demigods, is the Lord. So by worshipping him, who is the source of everything ultimately anyway, we are able to directly connect with him. And we as devotees, we understand, as Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada points out, that if we have sakam karma bhakti, which means that we are performing devotional service with desires, right? We have desires for so many different things in this material world. And still we want to purify ourselves from those desires, rather than artificially trying to restrain those desires. We ask the Lord to help us with those desires, and he will do what he sees fit. If we want a lot of money and prestige, worship the Lord. Why go somewhere else? Right? But as well as asking the Lord to fulfill those desires, we're asking him to please purify them. So he will do that in a way that he sees fit. And eventually we want to be rid of those desires. But we still go to the same person. It's like the baby. When he's fully surrendered, because he's fully surrendered to the mother, it doesn't matter what he needs or she needs, he will always go to the mother. Whether that's, eating, playing, crying, sad, happy, will always go to her parents, because that's what she knows, that she will get the same relief. So if she just wants love and attention, she will go to the mother. She wants to complain about something, she'll go to the mother, everything the same. So we have to create that kind of relationship with the Lord, that we're fully surrendered and understand that He is our only source of anything that we need. And therefore, we can fully surrender unto Him. And He will do what He sees fit. He'll purify those anarthas and desires we have. Right? Prabhupada also quotes the Taittiriya Upanishad, 3.1.1. He quotes it in quite a few spaces actually. In the Bhagavatam, he quotes it a few times. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, he quotes it. So it's Yato va imani bhutani jhayante yena jhatani jivanti yat prayantya visham vishantiti tad vijigyasasva tad brahmeti. So this verse is very to the point. It's very far out. Upanishads are always very straight to the point. So it says the supreme, right? The supreme absolute truth is that from which everything is born. Everything is generated from Lord Vishnu and everything is maintained by Him. And everything is annihilated by His energy. So in this verse you can see, Yato va imani bhutani jayate. So that person from which everything is born, right? Yena jatani jivanti. And He maintains them. Tat prayantya visham vishantiti. When they are time for them to be destructed, He does that. That is Brahman. Tad brahmeti, it says. Right? And tad vijigyasasva, that is the person to whom you should be inquiring. After whom you should be inquiring. That's the person who we should be asking about, not all these other different entities. The person who creates, maintains, and annihilates everyone at the end, right? He is Brahman, and that's the person who we should inquire about. So this Upanishad, Prabhupada quotes this verse many, many times, in so many different places, to emphasize that the Lord is the creator and the origin of everything. And therefore, in this verse of Bhagavatam, the Lord is so perfectly explaining, right? He is the source of everything, and therefore, we can ultimately surrender unto Him. Yeah? But why then in so many other Puranas and Smritis is it described that Shiva is the ultimate Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kartikeya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ganesh is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everywhere it's described so many different things. Some of them are bona fide, of course, and some of them aren't. That is because the same reason that the Lord describes in Bhagavad Gita, He says, Yo yo yam tanu bhakta Shraddha yarchitumichati tasya chalam shraddham tam eva vidadhamyaham. Right? I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. The Lord is wanting us to perform good, pious, religious acts at whatever cost. And so if we desire to have faith in some deity, some demigod, some Purana, something, the Lord Himself will make that faith strong and will encourage us in our devotional service, knowing, not devotional service, in our worship, right, in our faith, knowing that eventually that will purify us. Maybe not in this life, maybe not in the next life, but it will purify us. And so eventually we will come to the understanding that we should surrender unto Him. So therefore, there's so many examples, and actually Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur mentioned that one time one person read Srimad Bhagavatam, and his ultimate conclusion after reading the entire Bhagavatam was that Shiva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is unimaginable to us because we have the purport of Srila Prabhupada that very clearly, this verse right here, how can someone read this verse and then come to that conclusion? Because the Lord arranged it in that way. This person was so desiring to see Shiva as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, therefore the Lord facilitated him. And he was blinded with different verses that would obstruct his faith and destroy his faith. And so he read the Bhagavatam and he was like, what a wonderful book. Shiva was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That was the Lord's arrangement. Understand? So this is not something wrong. It's simply that we, as devotees, we have to understand that the Lord is the origin of everything. And if someone else has his faith in the different demigods, that's fine, as long as he's able to, if that inspires him to perform his religious activities, to purify himself, and eventually he will come to the understanding. So instead of discouraging other people who are not desiring to hear that, right, in the Upanishads and so many different places it's described never to give good advice to people who do not want to hear it, right? They're not going to see it, and it will simply distract them from whatever good they are doing right now. If someone comes inquiring, then for sure, you'll be able to open-heartedly accept whatever you have to say. But if someone is already performing his service and is already performing his activities in such a way that he wants to know, then let him be. and encourage him in his activities, as long as they're according to the different regulations and rules described in the Vedas. But if he wants to know, if he wants to come to the understanding, the higher understanding that Krishna is the supreme, then we're ready to give all knowledge, right? But as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita also, right? Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Only that knowledge which is given through a humble inquisitiveness and service, that knowledge will stay, and that knowledge will be able to uplift us. So if someone doesn't come with that attitude, it's simply a waste of our breath. Yeah? Okay. So there's so many different points we can understand from these verses of Bhagavad Gita, from these verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, where the Lord is establishing his ultimate supremacy. And it should encourage us that without any hesitation, whatever desires we have in our heart, whatever attachments we have, we shouldn't feel shy or embarrassed, because the Lord is there within our heart anyway. We should be willing to openly ask the Lord for whatever we desire, but along with that attachment that we have to whatever it is, we should ask for the ability to purify that attachment. Right? There was one person who was very addicted to drinking very fancy different types of wine. And he came to Srila Prabhupada. And said, Prabhupada, what should I do? I have this attachment, I can't give it up. So Prabhupada said, you should offer what is good within the wine to the Lord. Because you can't offer wine itself to the Lord. But he said, whatever is good within the wine, you should offer. And so this person started doing that, and eventually, after a few days, he started thinking about what is good in this wine. It's rotten, it's bad. He started thinking, okay, I'll offer the grapes that it used to be, but why not just offer grapes? Right? So he started thinking this way, and he understood that taste for something so tamasic was purified because of that simple instruction of the Lord. Rather than Prabhupada being very heavy and being, this is nonsense, you have to stop right now, he said, okay, offer what is good within the wine. Right? So we have to, by our attachment to different objects that we have, we can also utilize it in our devotional service as sakam karma bhakti. We have desires, but we surrender to the Lord. So we ask him to purify them. We ask him for those different things. We have a desire for, driving fast cars. I have a friend who's completely enamored with fast cars and motorbikes and this and that. He's an extremely good devotee. But he's super, that's his vice, let's say. That's his way of expressing his material enjoyment. Other people might be eating something fancy. Other people might be, traveling to fancy places and going to different beaches and different places. Everyone has something that is for their material enjoyment. And so they use it in the Lord's service. They go there, they continue their sadhana. They go to the beach, they might be on the beach, right? They'll do their worship, they'll do their japa, then they'll swim in the ocean. And that's way better than sitting all day at home scrolling on endlessly on Instagram, right? Way better to at least go to the beach and engage with nature, it's purifying. If you like to hike mountains, go hike the mountains, but take your japa with you, go chant. Understand? So there's so many different ways we can purify this desires we have in this material world without trying to artificially subdue them, right? Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita that, my dear Lord, controlling the mind is harder than controlling the wind with our hands, right? Just trying to stop the wind with our hands. It's impossible. So rather, let the Lord take care of that. So the mind, the desires we have, we utilize them in the Lord's service, and in that way we're able to purify. Those things that are completely against devotional service and against, the four regulative principles, demoniac intentions that might be there from past samskaras, from past bad association, those things, yes, with all help of the devotees and their mercy, we're able to purify. But if there's some subtle things that we need for us to continue in our devotional service, we should try and engage them in the Lord's service. And there's no need, as here we say, to go to other demigods for the purification of those anarthas. Go to the Lord directly, just like a child goes to the mother, whether it's a dirty diaper or he wants to eat, right? He goes to the mother. Yeah? Okay, wonderful. So today is also the disappearance day of Srila Sharanga Thakur. Sharanga Thakur is one great devotee of the Lord, but he's not so well known. There's so many devotees of the Lord who are not so well known. Their activities are not so well known. So I thought I would speak a few minutes on him, who he was. But first, we would like to speak a little bit about Navadvip Dhams, because Sharanga Thakur was living in Madhudruma Dweep. Right? For those of us who've done Navadi Mandal Parikram, we know that there's nine islands in Navadvip. That's why it's called Navadvip. And those 9 islands correspond with the 9 processes of devotional service, right? We have Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Atmanivedanam, right? So, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, sorry. So, first we have Simanta Dweep. So, Simanta Dweep is the place little bit northeast of Mayapur Dham. There's the famous Jagannath temple. The Jagannath Mandir is there for those of us who've been there. That's Simanta Dweep. Simanta Dweep is called Simanta Dweep because that's where Parvati Devi went and did austerities. Because once she heard, one day she saw Lord Shiva dancing crazily, like absolutely insane. He was singing Gauranga, 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 Gauranga. And Parvati Devi until that time never heard that name and never saw her husband dancing in such a way that was so intense, full of ecstatic bliss. So she asked Lord Shiva, who is this person you're chanting, and who is he going to be, and how are you feeling so much ecstasy? And so Lord Shiva explained that this Lord will be born in Navadvip, and he will have a golden complexion. He will distribute freely love of God. And so Parvati Devi wanted to see that Lord, and wanted to experience that same joy that Lord Shiva was having. And so Shiva said, go and perform austerities and worship him, and he will manifest himself. And so Parvati Devi, she went, she opened her beautiful braids and her bun that she had, and she was performing austerities there for a long time until Lord Gauranga appeared to her and put again her sindoor. So Simanta is the part between the hair. In India, it's very common, the Simantanayanam, right? There's that sacrifice, that samskara. So he put again the sindoor. And so that's called Simanta Dweep, where Mahaprabhu applied sindoor on Parvati Devi, Simanta Dweep. So that place is the place of hearing, right? Hearing means Shravana. Then the next one, Godruma Dweep, is chanting. Godruma Dweep is the place where there's many different pastimes, but specifically Lord Shiva appeared there as Hari and Hara. Harihara Kshetra is in that place. So the Lord Shiva is eternally there chanting the names of the Lord. And from that spot, anyone who passes away anywhere in the vicinity of Navadvip, Lord Shiva will go to them and chant in their ear the name of the Lord at the time of death. So this is Godruma Dweep, chanting. Lord Shiva is eternally chanting in that place. Then Madhya Dweep is remembering. There's many different pastimes that happen in Madhya Dweep. Remembering the Lord. Kola Dweep is in Navadvip city right now, where Navadvip is. Kola Dweep is called Kola Dweep because Kola is another name of a boar. So there's one devotee, I forgot his name, he desired to see the Lord in his form as a boar, as Raha. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed his form as Kola, as that Raha deity in that place. That's serving the lotus feet of the Lord, that's Kola Dweep. Ritu Dweep is worshipping the Lord. Janu Dweep is praying. Janu Muni, as we all know, that Ganga Devi sometimes is called Janavi, because she emanated from Janu Muni. At the time when Ganga Devi came to Navadvip, she was so full of ecstatic love, knowing that Gauranga Mahaprabhu would be born, that she spread and started flooding entire Navadvip because she wanted to touch every particle of dust where Mahaprabhu was going to perform his pastime. But Janu Muni was performing his austerities. And he understood, Ganga Devi's immense devotion, but she's doing something wrong. So many living entities will pass away, etc., etc. So he drank entire Ganga Devi. And Bharat Maharaj, he was going with his chariot ahead, and he looked around, and Ganga Devi's not there. So he went to Janamuni, and he said, my dear Janamuni, have you seen Ganga Devi? And he said, yes, she was flooding everywhere, so I drank her so she would be a little bit more controlled. And so Bharat Maharaj prayed to Janamuni for a long time again. And from his knee, Jhanu is another name for knee, from his knee, Jhanu, then Ganga Devi emanated. That's why she's called Jhanavi, from the knee of Janamuni, right? So Janu Dweep is the place of praying. Janamuni was there praying for millions of yugas. He was there praying unto Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Then Modadruma Dweep is the place of being a servant. There's a place in Modadruma Dweep where Hanuman actually resides eternally, but Modadruma Dweep is most famous for 2 places. Mamgachi is this place where there's beautiful trees, where Mahaprabhu did perform his pastimes, and the birthplace of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. Mamgachi is also the place where Shranga Thakur used to perform his service, and Vasudev Dutt. Vasudev Dutt was a devotee who asked the Lord to please give all the sins of everyone in the universe upon himself so they could all go back to Godhead. Right, very famous pastime. And last we have Rudra Dweep, right, being a friend. So those are the 9 processes of devotional service. They coordinate with the 9 islands of Navadvip. And if we go in Navadvip Parikram, you'll see all those 9 islands and hear so many pastimes. So hopefully everyone will get a chance to go at some point. But so Mododruma Dweep was the place where Shranga Thakur used to perform his service. Shranga Thakur, or sometimes known as Shranga Murari Thakur, right? He used to reside in Mododruma Dweep in a place called Mamgachi. Mamgachi is most well known because one day Mahaprabhu was there performing his intense Sankirtan pastimes. This is before he took sannyas. And there was this bokul tree. Bokul tree is usually small. They don't grow such sizes, but they're quite small. And they give these small little flowers. So this bokul tree was dying. It was getting old and frail. And Mahaprabhu said, why is this bokul tree dying? And what can we do to save it? And so Shranga Thakur said, Mahaprabhu, it's all your mercy. Whatever you desire will happen. And so in this intense feeling of Sankirtan, he wanted to deliver this bokul tree and take him back to Godhead. So he hugged the bokul tree. But instead of the bokul tree going back to Godhead, the bokul tree became immense in size. Until this day, he's there, this bokul tree. So whenever we go at Navadvip Parikram, you'll see thousands of devotees hugging this bokul tree to get the mercy of Mahaprabhu. This happened in the courtyard of Shranga Thakur's house. Right? Shranga Thakur is also very famous because he was so determined to focus on serving the Lord as it is for that island that he didn't want anything to hinder. He didn't want anyone to worship him. He didn't want anyone to come and disturb him. He was so focused on his service. Sometimes he would go for days into the forest, into the Ganga, and perform his remembrance of the Lord, his japa alone. But Mahaprabhu was very insistent that you have to take the disciples. You have to take other people back to Godhead. And he would keep saying, no, Mahaprabhu, I don't want to. They're going to disturb me. They're going to get in the way of my devotional service. And so one day Mahaprabhu said, is my order. So Shranga Thakur said, okay, tomorrow the first person I see, I will initiate. So he went into the Ganga that day, and he was in the morning, he was doing his Snanam, but it's Sandhya Vandana, right? Chanting. And something touched him, a body touched him on his thigh. So he turned around and he said, stand up and chant the name of the Lord. It was a dead body. He didn't know. The body stood up immediately, started chanting the name of the Lord. There was a boy, a small boy. In those times, the practice was, and also according to the Vedas, that when a young boy dies because of disease or whatever happened to be, in this case it was a snake bite, there's no need to burn the body because the child has no attachment to the body. Right? The body is burnt for grihastas, vanaprastas, those people who are attached to the body so that they can let go. But because children have no attachment to the body, there's no need to. It's done sometimes, but it wasn't any need to. So this boy was bitten by a snake and passed away, so the parents, they put him into Ganga. And he was floating down, and he touched Shranga Thakur, and Shranga Thakur initiated him, and he came back to life. And he says, my Lord, I'm your servant. Please instruct me what I should do. So Sranga Thakur said, chant the holy name of the Lord, worship the Lord, right? The Bhajo Krishna, Karo Krishna Shikha. And he gave him the name Murari, sometimes known as Chaitanya Murari, but Murari was his name. So once fame spread that Sranga Thakur had this new disciple and his name was Murari, and the description of Murari was given, the parents of the child, they found out that he came back to life. They were so happy. They went and said, Murari, come back home, it's so wonderful you're back alive, etc. And Murari said, no, he's my father now. He gave me life. He gave me rebirth and true birth into the devotional service. So I will stay with him. And this pastime very carefully illustrates the importance of taking initiation and also the importance of understanding the glories of receiving the holy name from a spiritual master, right? Or from any devotee in that way. That is true birth. Birth of the body is only glorious if we connect it to Krishna. So we only, sometimes the description is given that the initiation of the devotee is the true cause for celebration. Some devotees, they even say you shouldn't celebrate your birthday, you should celebrate your initiation day. Because that's the real celebration, the day where you make connection back to Krishna. And I think it's a very wonderful idea, You should, on that day, serve the devotees, just like we do on our birthdays. But we should remember that that's the day where I came in contact with devotees. That's the day when I received the holy name. And I'm ending this endless cycle of birth and death, just like Murari understood, that he is my father now. I have no connection to you anymore. You gave up this body. When the body died, you gave it up. You put it in the Ganga. Now you want to claim me again? No. He is my father now. So Sranga Thakur, together with Murari, they performed many amazing pastimes in Mayapur, in the surrounding areas. Sranga Thakur used to perform his sadhana so rigidly, so famously, and so careful. He used to worship his deities of Gopinath, Shri Radha Gopinath. And he used to go cross the Ganga. He would perform his full puja and everything. Then he would swim across the Ganga and join Mahaprabhu in Antardweep, where he used to perform his Sankirtan. Then come back in the evening, perform again his sadhana. And every day he would do like this, until, of course, when Mahaprabhu left Orissa. So if you ever get a chance to go to Mayapur Dham, to go to Navadvip, please do visit Mamgachi. It's a very beautiful place. The bokul tree that Mahaprabhu embraced is still there, and there's very beautiful deities, both of Vasudev Dutt, there's Madan Gopal deity, and there's also Shri Radha Gopinath of Sranga Thakur that were worshipped by him. They have very, very amazing kheer that the same recipe has been made since the time of Mahaprabhu. And it's very wonderful prasadam, just like Kirchur Gopinath. And just around the corner behind the temple, like maybe 5-minute walk, is the birthplace of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, where also so many amazing pastimes happened. So I hope on this day you have some impetus to hear more about the different pastimes of the Lord's devotees. And whenever you see on the calendar someone's birthday, someone's disappearance day, just click on the link and read a little bit about them, because it's a great inspiration for us hearing the pastimes of the devotees, and it gives us a cause to be more Krishna conscious on that day. Think about Sranga Thakur, think about Nityananda Prabhu, think about Sri Murari, Chaitanya Murari, right? And in this way, another excuse for us to be more Krishna conscious on every single day, because there's so many different days on the calendar. Just yesterday was another day, the day before was another day, so like this we can, every day a festival of the Lord, yeah? Jai Shri Sranga Thakur ki, Chaitanya Murari ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Nitai, Gaur Premanandi. Any questions or comments?
That's why you often cook feasts, huh?
Yes. Someone's birthday, someone's disappearance day. Always an excuse. Yes, Prabhu.
Just a comment, Prabhuji. I'm so grateful to Srila Prabhupada and you all Western disciples and devotees of Srila Prabhupada. You know, I'm from India and I'm 35 years old. I've seen whole life. Because we have a online audience as well. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, first of all, for such a wonderful class. And I want to express my gratitude to Srila Prabhupada and you all Western disciples and devotees of Srila Prabhupada. I come from India and I'm 35 years old now, Prabhuji. I've seen whole life a woman having the partition of the hair, you know, but I never knew that the middle line is called Shrimanta.
Shrimanta.
Shrimanta, yeah. And the second thing, amazing, Prabhu, you mentioned, I've also seen, Prabhuji, you know, that the body is burned after we leave the body. But I never knew exactly the reason, and no one ever told that the body is burned so that his detachment is taken away from them, you know. And this is so amazing, the magic of Prabhupada, that even though born in the Indian culture, brought up in Indian culture, but it's so magic that to learn from you, Prabhuji, these things. Thank you, Prabhu, very much.
Thank you. No, it's all glories to him, as you say. He gave us the ability to even come in contact with devotees, right? In many places it's described that one cannot become a devotee through his own pious credits. You cannot serve Krishna, or you even can't get to know about Krishna through anything, even millions of Rajasuya sacrifices. You cannot accumulate enough pious credits to even chant the holy name once. It's only given by the causeless mercy of devotees. And so Srila Prabhupada, through his causeless mercy, through his desire, he came to the West and gave the Maha Mantra to so many people who are giving the Maha Mantra to so many more people who are giving the mantra to so many other people. And so it's only by their causeless mercy. There's nothing we can do. Let's say we're just walking down the street and a devotee comes and gives you a Bhagavatam. That's not your credit. That's not something that you've done to be in that place and circumstance. No, it was the desire of that devotee to give you that mercy. And so his causeless mercy has enabled us. And for example, in my case, my parents came in contact with the devotees many, many years ago. Then when I was born, they decided that we should go to Mayapur. Therefore, I grew up in Mayapur. I learned everything from there, and now I'm here performing service for the Lord, for the devotees, through their mercy. So it's mercy after mercy after mercy. And like you said, so Prabhupada is the cause of all this, causeless mercy. So yes, the burning of the body, which is described, there's many different ways, right? But especially it's for those people who have identification with the body, it's very important that they burn the body in that way, so that attachment is destroyed. That's also why in India and different cultures, what part of India are you from, Prabhu?
I'm from Mumbai.
Mumbai, okay. So depending on the religion, right, there's the 21 days, there's the 11 days, depending, I don't know, in your culture, how many days after the person passed away, you have to be silent, you cannot go and party, right, you can only eat very plain things. This is so that the person is happy and content that these people are missing me, right? They're missing me, they appreciated me, they liked me, and so they do not feel the desire to, a malefic desire, right? So that they, cause some harm to you, or like, oh, look at these people, they're happy right after I passed away. How can they do this? And then bad fortune will fall on the family. So there's many different traditions all over India. It's all to do with the attachment to the body, right? There's so many different prescribed ritualistic activities. It's also that the Atma, or the person, can let go and go to wherever his next destination is, right? And then there's so many other things that are done for purification. Let's say in Ganga, right? Like in Kashi, there's non-stop fires burning because they're putting the people in the Ganga so that they will achieve moksha, but in reality, whatever the next destination is supposed to be. So at the ages before the child identifies with the body, right? There's no need to burn the body. It can be buried, it can be put in the river. There's many different things described. But once a person takes sannyas, he is no longer identifying with the body. He's no longer thinking, this is my body. His only cause is to preach. And so therefore, once a person takes sannyas, his body becomes transcendental in a way that it reminds us of Krishna. When you see the spiritual master, it's an impetus for us to become more devotional. And so therefore, his body is a cause of celebration, because in this body, the person became fully Krishna conscious. And so therefore, his body is put into samadhi, not so much for the purpose of the person, but for us, so that we can go and visit his samadhi and remember him and remember the Lord. Understand? Therefore, there's so many samadhis of all the acharyas, like Srila Prabhupada's samadhi. It is in Vrindavan, right? We go there, and it's a great cause for us to remember him, right? To remember him, to worship him, and his body is transcendental in that way. So that's why there's so many different regulations. Yeah, burning the body is simply for that purpose, of destroying that attachment. Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Yes, bro.
As much as material desires are concerned, if you had one, which I doubt,
I have so many.
would you ask the Lord Shri Krishna to remove that desire, or would you ask him to fulfill that desire, or would you ask him, to fulfill it in his service? So,
well, that's the end of the question. Okay.
You want to get rid of it, or do you want to engage it?
Yeah. So like I said, there's those things. There's always remember Krishna and never forget him. Those are the two principles by which we live our lives. To the extent you're able to remember him, let's say 80% of the day, 10% of the day you're able to remember him, that means 90% of the day you should be trying not to forget him, right? So if you're not doing the positive, you should be doing the negative. And the more you're doing the negative, then the less you'll be doing the positive, right? So both ways, either you're trying to remember him, or you're at least trying never to forget him. And then slowly you'll be remembering him more and not remembering him less, right? So there's certain things that we do in our devotional service that are 100% Krishna conscious. Let's say Mangalarti, chanting japa, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, eating prasadam, serving tulasi, right? There's those 5 activities that are 100% Krishna conscious. And so that's always remembering him. But the rest of the day, we still need to fill it up somehow. So how do we fill it up? We perform activities that are not going to make us forget Krishna, but may not be directly devotional service. So for example, you go for a walk in the mountain, you take your japa, You're still not forgetting him, but you're engaging in whatever activities you have to do, right? You're doing your work in your office. Some way or another, you're connected to him because you're getting your Lakshmi to take care of your family, who are all devotees, and for you to be able to maintain this material body, to continue your devotional service, you're still serving Krishna in that way, if you're able to connect it. You understand? So within the day, there's so many activities that we might need to perform either for our sustenance or for our enjoyment. And this is this idea of enjoyment, it falls into the same spectrum of taking care of ourselves, right? This artificial restraint of the senses tends to become very dry and makes one very agitated. Just like the sages, right? So many times we hear, this kid did that, sage cursed him. This happened, sage cursed him. And not a small curse. Become a crocodile, become a tree, become a worm, become a pig, Why? Because they're so angry, constantly controlling their senses to such a point where their nerves are on the edge. And so anything happens, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. A tiny little thing, one person makes a tiny little noise, bam, 1,000 years in hell. That's what's going to happen to us. Any tiny little thing that a devotee does, any tiny little thing that happens in our devotional service, where we are, let's say, for example, my example, I'm cooking in the kitchen, and someone forgot to, put the milk inside, it went rotten. That can destroy my whole day. But why? My whole day of devotional service will be ruined because I'll be, this devotee did this, he's so unconscious, he's so that. Why? Because I'm so on the edge. Understand? So one time Pankajani Prabhu, he told me that material enjoyment or material life, material sense gratification, of course in a pure way, is like salt. You cannot put too much or you won't be able to eat your devotional service, quote unquote, devotional service, Like we won't have any desire for our devotional service because we're doing too much sense gratification. But if you put too little, it becomes tasteless and you don't understand the purpose of it all and you feel very unenthused. So to that extent where you're performing your material enjoyment, that at the same time it increases your desire to do your spiritual life. Let's say if you're able to go on a walk and it purifies your mind, it calms you down, that the next day you can wake up from Mangalarti refreshed, that was very helpful for your devotional service. Was it, quote unquote, direct devotional service? No. But if you had to stay and scrub the entire temple, get every tiny little piece of dust out, depending on your mental situation, it might not have been so good. And the next day you'll be sore, right? I did so much service yesterday, I'm not going to go for Mangalarti today. Understand? So the balance is the most important part. So if we have desires that are indirectly, right, there's sense gratification, but they're not, taking drugs, illicit sex, etc., that are breaking the four regulated principles, but are in one way or another, a desire that we have. We, for example, I gave the example of someone who's attached to fancy bikes or cars like that. Let them do it. He buys it, he'll drive it to and from the temple, to and from his service, to and from with his family. It's fine. He shouldn't be in complete illusion that, no, this is Yukta Vairagya, I only got it for devotional service. No, you got it because you wanted it. But you're using it in the Lord's service. You go to the mountain because you want to, right? But you're chanting your rounds. You're eating the pizza because you want to. The Lord has no desire for pizza. You're making pizza because you wanted pizza. Be honest with yourself. But we offer it first to the Lord. Understand? So whatever desire we have, we should always go to the Lord, and we shouldn't feel ashamed or in any way kind of hesitating. We ask the Lord. And if He sees it fit, He will facilitate it. If not, He won't. And that surrender to the Lord is the most important thing, because even in our devotional service, there's so many situations that might arise where we endeavor so hard for something, but it didn't turn out the way we wanted, right? And if we are not surrendered, that can be a cause of our downfall. That can be the cause of, forget it, I'm not going to do devotional service anymore, right? But because we're surrendered to the Lord, whatever He desires at the end happens, and we're able to continue on without any attachment. And this connection, my father is a very, very good example, for me at least, because just before COVID, he put hundreds of thousands of dollars into a project, a preaching project, right? It was, he was getting it started, and then COVID hit. And during COVID, he was still doing programs. He made quite a few devotees, but it was supposed to be something that went on. But now, just last year, it wasn't able to maintain. He himself wasn't able to continue it because it was too much stress, and he's quite getting elderly. And so he had to let it go. But there was not a single piece of attachment to him, and I noticed that. It wasn't remorse, so many thousands of dollars from his own money, not, but from his own money, used in the Lord's devotional service. But he was very happy. He said, no, it was a great success. Look there's like 4 or 5 devotees who are now devotees because of that program. Yeah. Half the city know who Krishna is because of that, so many festivals we had, kirtans we had, prasadam we were serving. So it was a great success. Like Prabhupada says that if in ISKCON, if after everything is said and done, if we're able to send one person back to Godhead, ISKCON as a whole was a grand success. One person, that's how glorious it is. So to make one person chant Krishna's holy name is such a great accomplishment that whatever endeavor that we do, we shouldn't feel that kind of material attachment. Yeah, so let's say you have a great desire for a car, a fancy car, whatever, we're worshiping Krishna, we're asking Krishna, but we shouldn't be like attachment to that result, because then if it doesn't come, then Krishna is not God. No, Krishna saw that if you got the car, you would forget him, so better you don't get the car. Then you will continue asking for it at least. You would keep going to Krishna, It's like in Kamsa's case. He hated Krishna, he wanted to kill him, but he was non-stop thinking about Krishna. So Krishna will do what he sees fit. We have to be fully surrendered. If Krishna wants, he'll give it. If Krishna doesn't want, he won't give it. But we still go to him for whatever problem we have. And if he's not going to give it, he will give us the opportunity to purify that desire, to eventually get over whatever desire that might be through his devotional service. Yeah, and if he does give it to us, he will see if it's fit or not. Yeah? So within those 2 principles of understanding the balance of our material, quote-unquote material enjoyment and our devotional service, it becomes a lot more easy for us to follow this already very easy process of devotional service. But yeah, we have to, like Mahatma Prabhu, the other in his seminar was very clearly saying, we have to take care of ourselves, we have to take care of our mind, we have to take care of our body. And so it becomes easier for us to sit down in the morning and chant. If the day before, you did so much service that you're completely sore, you're not able to do anything, and then you're not able to chant because of that, and your mind is disturbed because that devotee didn't show up to do his half of the service, that's not very helpful, is it? And so having a clean mind, having ourselves very peaceful, sometimes we need to do things. Some, diversion, some enjoyment is necessary. But we should always try and make sure that it's not against any principles. And we're doing something that, may not be. I want to go snowboarding this winter. I really want to go. And I'm going to enjoy it like anything. But I'm not, that's Krishna. Mountain is Krishna, snow is Krishna, everything is Krishna, so I'm going to enjoy it. I might not be so Krishna conscious. Yes, right? But I know then that desire to go snowboarding will be little less, and I'll be able to focus more on my devotional service. Yeah, I'll be happy. The next day I'll cook even better. It'll be more tasty for the devotees. Yeah, so like that. So whatever desires we have, we should surrender unto the Lord and offer unto him. If he gives it to us, great. If he doesn't give it to us, great. Not a problem for us. I've been having this desire for 10 years, more than that. But the desire was there, right? But it was never something that was in the way of my devotional service, but by his mercy, he brought me here, where there's snow, after 20 plus years in Mayapur, where there's no snow. And so now I have the ability to satisfy that desire I had. Yeah? Well, some other desire might come up. Swimming in Ganga. Let's go swim in Ganga. Yeah? Okay. Yes, Maraji.
So 2 questions but correlated. So in the married life, for a couple, we see that we, compared to the who are fully in devotion service, we do very little or nothing. I mean, we do, but it is very little. So how do we, go ahead, and because if you see the ultimate goal is moksha, and in that goal we are very, very behind, because we have to work. We are in married life, we are working, earning and doing most of the time is devoted to the work. So one question is this. And the second question is, when you're working, then of course then there is a goal in the work. So how should we think about moving ahead? I mean, in terms of thinking more about work, going step ahead, thinking about going to the different position and aiming there. would it take us away from God, or should we? I'm a bit confused in that regard. Should we just be basic, or should we take our goal ahead in terms of work? So
Yes,
that kind
very
of
good
confusion.
question. Very good question, Mazi, actually. It's very to the point. Two parts of the question. Of course, one part is the married life. I myself, I'm also married, and married life is meant for us to defeat or to conquer the desire or the anartha of lust and greed. That's married life. The lust directly is purified in married life. And how is it purified? By deity worship. Deity worship is what purifies lust in married life. How? Because we surround ourselves with understanding that everything, the house, the children, the family, Krishna is a big part of it. And so by having a picture of the Lord, by having deities of the Lord in the house, and just revolving your day around Him purifies. The home purifies, your consciousness purifies everything. You go to work, you make a lot of Lakshmi. You come home, you buy your groceries, whatever. You make your wonderful prasadam, you offer it to the Lord first. You wake up, first thing you do, offer some incense, some lamp. Understand that He is the cause and He's part of the family. So that to the greater extent you have that understanding, to the greater extent you'll be able to dedicate your life to the Lord. Right? So a huge part of married life is deity worship and having the house revolve around Him. When you enter a new home, when you enter a new place, what's the first thing you're going to look for? Where's the altar? Where am I going to put the Lord? He needs His room. He needs His place. And that understanding will increase to such an extent where He is non-different from your family. Yeah, there's the famous story of Madan Gopal, well, Madan Mohan, right? Before Sanatana Goswami had him, you know the deities of Madan Mohan? In Karoli, right? In Jaipur, right? So before they had him, they were in a family of Brahmanas in Mathura, the Chobes family. And so they were treating him, they were worshipping in such a way that he was just part of a family. She would make the plate for Madan Gopal and the plate for her son together. They would sit down and eat together. They would take bath together. They would bathe her son, bathe Madan Gopal. You would put them to sleep together, both and right next to each other. They would sleep together, the son and Madan Gopal. And he was so happy in that situation. One day Sanatana Goswami came and saw this, and for him, understanding the rules and regulations, he kindly instructed her, you should do this, you shouldn't do this, like that. And at that time, Madan Gopal came in Sanatana Goswami's dream and said, you ruined everything. I was so happy. Now she's making difference. Now I don't eat with my best friend. Now, she treats me like formal, like, oh, you're the Lord, you're not my loved one anymore. And so now you have to take me, he said to Sanatana Goswami. Now you've ruined this kind of worship, now you have to take me. So the Lord is part of the family, and the more we're able to understand that, obviously we can imitate that kind of pure Raganuga worship. But the more we're able to understand and we let our children grow up in the same way, every time my daughter, let's say she wants a banana, I take the banana, I put it in front of Shyam Gopal, I ring the bell, she understands that he had it first, and then she has it. From very small age, she will start understanding that. And they will become way more Krishna conscious than we ever are because they grew up with Krishna. So the more we're able to keep Krishna in the center of our house and all our activities are around Him, our daily activities around Him, He has to wake up, He has to eat, He has to go to sleep, He has to be taken care of, just like another person in the family. It really helps for us to focus. Yeah? And on the other hand, in your job, you should always do it 100%. Right? 100%, as long as it's not against devotional service, or how would I say, getting in the way of your devotional service, then yeah, we do 100%. This is a very common excuse amongst devotees that, no, I'm a devotee, I'm not after money. But then what are you thinking about all day? Oh, if I had money, I would go there. If I had money, I'd do this. But they're too lazy to go and actually do it, so they say, oh, because I'm a devotee, that's why I don't have money. No, because you're lazy, you don't have money. You could be doing something. You could chant your rounds in the morning and then go do some job. What's the problem? And you would purify that desire for money. Right? So no, we should always do things 100%. Like Mahaprabhu gave a very beautiful class, and he was saying that in his young life in Krishna consciousness, right, he was 100% dedicated to the temple, whatever, he didn't have any pocket money in the beginning. When he did have, it was very little. And he got married with that same kind of very austere life. But he realized that he was just thinking about, oh, I need money for this, and he was becoming anxious. So what did he do? He dedicated. He said, okay, 2 years I'm going to work 100%. And yeah, my sadhana might suffer, the quality of my rounds might suffer, but then I'll have enough that I won't have to think about it again. Right? So for 2 years, yeah, he was working, he said, like 10, 12 hours a day, not able to go to Mangalarti, not able to go to all these different things. Chanting in the car may not have been so good. But after that, he had enough. He was able to buy a house, this, that, and then focus on his devotional service. So there was a goal to that job. He did it 100%. So if that desire for progress in your job and like that will be purified by you offering the results of that job to Krishna. But doing it 100% is a virtue, is something that will help you ultimately in your devotional service. That ability to fully dedicate, to focus, to work hard for something you want, because we have to work hard for what we want, to be 100% Krishna conscious. We can't be lazy in that way. Just like we give excuse, I'm not going to work because I'm Krishna conscious. You're going to do the same thing. I'm not going to chant because I'm tired. Excuses and procrastination is a disease that spreads to every facet of your life. So if you have that drive to go and work hard and do your, progress in your job, get your promotions, get your more Lakshmi, everything, why not? But to that extent, you should also then focus in the house on the Lord. Yeah? But it's a wonderful ability to be able to have that drive. And ultimately, we're going to have that drive in our own devotional service. But by worshiping the Lord, we're going to be able to purify it from Lakshmi or progress or fame or power, whatever that's driving you in your job. You'll be able to then shift that to Krishna consciousness. But most important thing in the householder life is to have Krishna in the center. That's the most important thing. And in India, it's natural, of course, as Prabhu says many times, we don't know why, right? But every single house, especially in Bengal, there's tulsi outside, there's a little altar, they have their pictures. They do a little bit of puja every morning. Every single taxi driver has their picture, they do their puja. They don't know why, but they do it out of habit, out of ritual. But if we consciously do that and we understand that he's part of the family, he's part of the house, he is the source of everything, then everything becomes more meaningful, right? Why do we worship him first thing in the morning? Because he's a person. He needs his attention. He needs his love. Why do we offer our food to him? Because he's the source of everything. He is a person in the house. He's part of the family. So that forces us to not become grihamedis. Grihamedi means someone who simply lives and rots in the house, right? And especially when the job becomes quite intense, it's, in the house is not very enjoyable. You just get there, go to sleep, wake up, go to job. Get there, go to sleep, wake up, go to job. But if you have Krishna there, it might be able to even put more energy into the house. More focus. Yeah. You have to cook something nice. Why? Because you're not going to eat your Maggi noodles. Krishna's not going to eat your Maggi noodles. You have to make your proper sabji and rice to offer to the Lord. You can't microwave your Maggi noodles and then offer that to the Lord. So I've even seen many times that devotees will cook very opulent for the Lord, but have no desire for themselves. Yeah, because if you live alone, that's the common thing. If you live alone, right, you eat all kinds of junk. Then when kids come, then you start cooking a little bit more healthy for them. But if you have the Lord, even your own health will improve. Make sense, Mataji? Yeah, but absolutely. The Japanese are very, it's something that we can learn from them, is that they always work for perfection in whatever work. They believe that through their work, they will achieve enlightenment. It's one facet of Buddhism, right? If they're a painter, they will paint with such focus and determination and meditation almost, doing everything ritualistically perfect, that by doing that, they will achieve enlightenment. And that's why you see the products that they're able to produce, not the mass produce, but like the cloth, the culture, everything is so focused around that because that is their religion. So this is something we can learn from us. If we're doing our job, do it 100%. Then when we do our japa, we should put that same 100% into our japa. If we're doing our sadhana, 100% into our sadhana. Put 100% everywhere. And eventually that 100% will focus more towards the japa and the sadhana. Not 10% work and then complain about my little bit amount of money, and then 10% japa and complain that my anarthas aren't going away, and then 10% into your cooking and you have bad sabji and you complain about your sabji. No, 100% everywhere. It's much better. Yeah? Thank you for the wonderful question. Anything else? No? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Because it's a lot of A's.